In today's deep dive, we unravel the disturbing histories of three of the most notoriously cruel slave owners in history. Madame Delphine Lori of New Orleans, Thomas Thistlewood from Jamaica, and Edward Covey. Their extreme cruelty not only highlights the grim realities of slavery, but also serves as a dark testament to the horrors that can emerge from unchecked power and systemic brutality. Born Marie Delphine McCarty in 1787 to a prominent white Creole family in New Orleans, Delphine Lori ascended the social ladder through marriage. Her third and most famous marriage was to Dr. Leonard Louis Nicolas Lori in 1825. The couple purchased a luxurious mansion in the French Quarter, which became the stage for many high society gatherings. However, beneath the mansion's opulent facade lay a terrifying secret. On April 10, 1834, a fire broke out in the Lori residence. As the community rallied to save the mansion, they discovered bound and mutilated slaves in the attic. Reports indicated some slaves had their mouths sewn shut, others had limbs amputated, and some had holes in their skulls with wooden spoons near them, suggesting horrifying attempts at crude lobotomies. The revelation shocked New Orleans society, which, despite its reliance on slave labor, was unprepared for such atrocities. A mob of locals destroyed much of the mansion, and Lori fled to France, where she lived in obscurity until her death. The mansion's remnants stand today as a haunted landmark, with visitors claiming to hear screams of agony and to see ghostly apparitions. Thomas Thistlewood's journey into the annals of infamy began when he arrived in Jamaica in 1750. He quickly became an overseer at a sugar plantation, a position he used to exert ruthless control over the lives of slaves under his charge. Thistlewood's diaries, which he kept for nearly 4 decades, detail with chilling nonchalance the daily management and punishment of slaves. His entries reveal a man who saw the enslaved not as humans but as property to be exploited and punished at will. His diary entries meticulously record acts of rape, torture, and cruel punishments for even minor transgressions. His notorious Darby's dose, a punishment where a slave was forced to defecate in another's mouth, which was then gagged shut, was reserved for runaways. He also wrote of gibbeting, where he hung slaves by a hook through their ribs for hours. These punishments were designed to maximize pain and break the spirit of the slaves, ensuring complete control through fear. The legacies of Lori and Thistlewood are stark reminders of the barbaric extremes of human cruelty. They force us to confront uncomfortable truths about the past and challenge us to reflect on how history is remembered and taught. The stories of these two individuals also offer insights into the psychological and societal mechanisms that allow such extreme cruelty to flourish. Both operated within societies that institutionalized racism and dehumanized black people, creating environments where such brutality could exist openly and without penalty. Today, the remnants of Lori's mansion and the detailed diaries of Thistlewood serve not just as historical records, but as calls to action. They urge us to continue to uncover and confront our collective past, to ensure that the histories of those who suffered are remembered, and to foster a future where such atrocities are never repeated. Edward Covey, a farmer in St. Michael, Maryland, became infamous during the early 19th century for his severe methods of breaking the spirits of slaves, particularly those deemed unruly by their owners. Slave owners would often send their most defiant slaves to him, confident that his brutal tactics would transform them into obedient laborers. Covey owned a small farm, which operated largely on the labor of the slaves sent to him for breaking. He didn't own many slaves himself, so he relied on this practice for income and sustenance. His farm was a place of constant surveillance and cruelty, a place slaves dreaded being sent to, known as Covey's house, synonymous with extreme physical labor and ruthless punishment. Covey's methods involved a perverse logic of constant labor and unpredictability. He believed that keeping slaves busy from dawn until dusk, with little time for rest or reflection, would wear them down physically and mentally. His favorite tactic was a sudden, unprovoked assault which kept slaves in a perpetual state of fear, always on edge, never knowing when or why the blow would come. This psychological manipulation aimed at breaking their spirit and will to resist. The most detailed account of Edward Covey's brutality comes from Frederick Douglas, who was sent to Covey at age 16. Douglas describes 1833, the year with Covey, as a time of constant hunger, labor, and punishment. It was here that Douglas faced some of the harshest conditions of his enslavement. However, it was also at Covey's farm that Douglas fought back, marking a turning point in his life. After being repeatedly beaten, Douglas finally resisted, physically confronting Covey. The altercation lasted for nearly 2 hours. Remarkably, Covey never attempted to beat Douglas again. Douglas later considered this act of defiance as transformative, a reclaiming of his sense of self and inner freedom. The cruelty of Edward Covey highlights the barbaric practices that were part of slave life. His story helps us understand the physical and psychological torment that was deliberately inflicted upon slaves to maintain control and suppress any thought of resistance or freedom. Moreover, Covey's story is essential for understanding the broader context of resistance among enslaved people. It shows that even within the most oppressive conditions, the human spirit's desire for dignity and freedom can prevail. Douglas's account of overcoming Covey's brutalization is a testament to this resilience and defiance. In recounting the stories of Deline Lori, Edward Covey, and Thomas Thistlewood, we are reminded of the depths of depravity to which individuals can sink, especially when supported by a system that condones or ignores their actions. As we reflect on these stories, we recognize the importance of historical awareness in building a more just and humane society. Thank you for joining us on this somber journey into the past. Please remember to share this video to increase awareness and subscribe for more content that delves into the complex and often difficult aspects of history. Together we can learn from the past to ensure a brighter, more inclusive future.